All right, so we've been getting questions about the biggest franchises in the US, in the world. And before we go through every type of franchise, let's focus on the biggest franchise category, and that's quick service restaurants. So fast food franchises. What are the top 20 fast food franchises for 2022? I'm going to give options that you could potentially invest in to buy a franchise in the United States for one of these brands, as well as 5 runner-ups, which unfortunately aren't currently franchising, but you could potentially buy their stock or they might franchise in the future. So number one's Chick-fil-A. Average restaurant sales for a Chick-fil-A is $6.1 million. For those that are freestanding restaurants outside a mall and have been operating at least one full calendar year, they're making even more money, closer to $8 million when they have a drive-through location. But even stores without a drive-through are still reaching $3.2 million. Chick-fil-A is expanding throughout the states, 155 locations nationwide last year. The family's worth billions of dollars. We have another report on franchise billionaires. You'll have to read that report and we'll create a video. And although you can't own 100% of a franchise or even own it all, the franchise, you can get 50% of the profits by investing just a commitment of $10,000 of capital to run and operate a Chick-fil-A. You can expect in the range of $200K to $400,000 a year that you're making. And there are Chick-fil-A operators clearing over $500,000. Whataburger, so those that are familiar with this Texas regional fast food chain, opened in 1950, headquartered in San Antonio. Last year, 2021, it expanded with 29 locations. You're required, though, to have a lot of money to open up a Whataburger. So in comparison to Chick-fil-A, you need 300 times the amount of money. So $5 million in liquid assets and a $12.5 million net worth. The good news is you own 100% of the business, and you should be able to sell your Whataburger or multiple Whataburgers for a nice multiple and return on your investment. Next is McDonald's, which really revolutionized the franchise system. It wasn't the first franchise per se, but it revolutionized it, and especially in the fast food segment. Average restaurant sales, $3.4 million. Restaurant sales bumped up 21% to more than $112 billion, a company record. Number 4 is Culver's, an emerging brand that probably fast forward 5 years, everyone's going to know about this company. Average restaurant sales, $3.1 million. It's been around for 38 years, but largely in the Midwest. But they had a food truck tour for the first time where they visited 17 cities across the United States with their first ever mobile Culver's. And I think that was generating a buzz, potentially attracting new fans, consumers to the Culver's brand, as well as potentially franchisees. System-wide sales were 1.7 B in 2019, and then lifted to nearly $2 billion in 2020, and then $2.48 billion in 2021. Very few Culver's have closed over its 35-plus year history. It's a great option, especially for those that have real estate development experience, because the development costs are generally a fraction of what you can sell to a REIT. They sell for a nice rate, where there's other franchise systems. You buy the land, you develop the site, and you sell it off, and you get some return. But Culver's, it looks like a pretty nice return where you could potentially net over $1 million based on developing the site and then selling it off to a REIT. Next up, Krispy Kreme at the number 5 slot. Average sales about $3 million. Krispy Kreme's publicly traded on the NASDAQ. Net revenue grew 23% to $1.38 billion. Operates in more than 30 countries and plans to expand in 3 more countries in the next couple of years. They're mostly growing through corporately owned and operated locations. So I'd be a little afraid becoming a new franchisee in the system, because the corporate might just take all the best locations and you might compete directly with them. And they're already selling Krispy Kremes in a lot of grocery stores, as many of you know. Panera Bread, favorite from my teenage years. Average restaurant sales, 2.7 mil. It's a bakery concept, fast casual restaurant for those that aren't familiar. Over 2,000 locations. To become an area developer of Panera in 2022, you have to have experience already as a multi-unit restaurant operator. Net worth of $7.5 million, liquid assets of $3 million. Real estate experience in the market to be developed, as well as cultural fit and passion for fresh bread. Panera, it was taken private, but while it was a publicly traded company, it went up like more than Google and more than a lot of technology stocks have gone up in the similar time frame. The investment return has been absurdly high for Panera Bread, for those that owned Panera in the 90s and 2000s before it was taken private. Zaxby's, number 7, average restaurant sales 2.5 mil. They offer chicken wings, chicken finger sandwich, salads. Most of the restaurants are owned by franchisees, which I like. And AUV rose from 2.2 million in 2020 to 2.5. Initial investment $500K to $1 million. So we estimate a pretty fast payback period for a Zaxby's, and as little as 4 years to get your initial return on investment. Panda Express, another brand like Chick-fil-A that's still closely held by the family and has made them billionaires. So Panda Express really revolutionized first chain of American Chinese cuisine to dominate throughout the United States, over 2,200 locations. And they've been testing out meatless orange chicken and different partnerships with Beyond Meat. The franchise and license locations of Panda Express mostly operate in airports and non-traditional locations. They also perform a lot worse than the corporately owned and managed locations, those with a drive-through single tenant. I've been to Panda Express in food courts, at airports, and also the single standing. Most are corporately owned and operated. Less than 10% are actually operated by franchisees and licensees. Panda Express is probably a brand that I would skip on, just as you're competing with this billionaire family, and who wants to do that where you're a very small fish competing directly with the franchisor in this case. El Pollo Loco, average restaurant sales $2 million, and it specializes in Mexican-style grilled chicken. It has a new CEO and a pretty aggressive franchise growth into different markets. They're looking for multi-concept franchisees as part of their expansion strategy. Coming in at number 10, Bojangles, average restaurant sales 1.9 mil, specializes in Cajun seasoned fried chicken. Approximately 770 restaurants across mostly the southeastern United States. And they recently signed a development deal with one of their longtime franchisees, Jeff Rigsby, to open up 45 stores in the next 7 years. It's a great sign. Generally, when a system's on a decline, their top franchisees are not opening more locations. So as a side, you had Dunkin' Donuts franchisees that just kept opening up more locations, kept reinvesting their money, opening up more locations. The moment the top franchisees stop doing that, that's definitely a red flag for the system. We can have a whole other episode on that. Going back to the top 20, Wendy's at 11, average restaurant sales 1.9 mil. Last year, Wendy's delivered 121 new restaurants, including opening of Wendy's first UK restaurant, and its 100,000th international store. We expect franchisees in the US to be making $250K to $300,000 in EBITDA and earnings. I personally own Wendy's stock. I'm a big fan of Wendy's. Next up, Popeyes. Popeyes had average restaurant sales $1.8 million, founded in 1972 in New Orleans, and it's currently headquartered here down the highway from where we are, 15 minutes here in Miami. Last year, AUV rose about $400,000 up to $1.8 million. So pretty nice expansion of revenue, going from 1.4 to 1.8. Last year, Popeyes opened 208 stores in the US and Canada, and which brings its total to about 3,000 restaurants. And they're doing more traditional freestanding footprint. That's also looking at a double drive-through for coming restaurants that are opening up next year in 2023. Number 13, McAllister's Deli, average restaurant sales 1.8 million. It was founded in 1989 in Oxford, Mississippi by a retired dentist, Dr. Don Newcomb. Last year, it saw about $870 million in system-wide sales, and they're pretty bullish to get up to $1 billion by 2024. The brand crossed recently 500 domestic locations, and their largest franchisee, David Blackburn of Southern Rock Restaurants, was the one to open up that 500th location and continues building stores. Number 14, Jack in the Box, average restaurant sales of $1.8 million. Jack in the Box is an American fast food chain founded in 1951, has over 2,200 locations, mostly on the West Coast of the United States, especially in California. Last year, they bought for about $600 million Del Taco, a 600-unit franchise system, and they have pretty big expansion plans, and they've had 50 new agreements consisting of more than 200 restaurants. That's the biggest commitment they've had in their 71-year history. Number 15, Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers. They're based in Wichita, Kansas. They continue to improve system-wide sales, up 17.8%, opened 32 new restaurants, including New Jersey, Wisconsin, and they continue to sign multi-unit development agreements. Number 16, Taco Bell. Average restaurant sales 1.8 million, owned by Yum Brands. They also own KFC. They continue to expand both in the US and internationally. Number 17, Sonic Drive-In. It's owned by Inspire Brands, a parent company of Arby's and Buffalo Wild Wings. Last year, Sonic turned in the best 2-year same-store performance, 25% growth. They are pretty expensive to open up, and definitely look at that payback period if you're looking to explore a Sonic Drive-In. Wingstop 1.6. You'll notice a lot of chicken brands that I've just gone through, and it's aviation themed restaurant specializing in chicken wings, and they also have chicken sandwiches. It experienced its best performance in terms of the restaurant sales during its long tenure as a publicly traded company. Same store sales increased 8% year over year, and then 29% on a 2-year basis. And they opened net growth of 193 locations. Del Taco, I mentioned, was bought for about $600 million by Jack in the Box, also publicly traded. It specializes in Mexican cuisine, also burgers, fries, shakes. They signed 9 deals last year for 68 restaurants in 10 states. And together with Jack in the Box, they have 2,800 plus locations. Number 20, Five Guys, about $1.5 million in average restaurant sales. It was founded or headquartered in Northern Virginia. At the end of 2021, it already had 1,300 plus restaurants. Net gain of 8 restaurants. System-wide sales rose from 1.7 billion to nearly 2.1 billion. Now I want to go through some restaurants where sometimes the numbers were just too good to franchise, where they just wanted to keep opening up corporate locations, as was the case with Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers at $4.5 million average restaurant sales. They're opening one up just 2 blocks from us in Miami Beach. It opens in 2 weeks. Excited to check that out. It was founded in Baton Rouge, Louisiana in 1996. At $4.5 million AUV, it was second only to Chick-fil-A. Both those brands you can't own. Chick-fil-A, you can, become a manager that's absurdly well compensated, $200K to $400K, potentially more. And Raising Cane's has a similar thing, a restaurant partner program, which helps the store managers continue to rise up, become operators of company-owned restaurants, and they can receive much more money than a typical manager of a McDonald's, for example. They continue to boost a really nice pipeline and plan to open up another 300 restaurants throughout the states. Number 2, Shake Shack, just in the other direction of us on Lincoln Road in Miami Beach. They have a location, average restaurant sales 3.5 million. Started in New York. It's publicly traded, so you can buy the stock. And despite the lockdown and pandemic, they had overall system-wide sales of $1.1 billion, and it marked the highest year for the company in 2021, and it has over 2 times the AUV of other better burger concepts like Five Guys. So it's really cemented itself in that space, and again, it doesn't franchise. Pretty similar average restaurant sales, 3.7 million. In-N-Out Burger, regional chain. Everyone knows about it in California, the Southwest, mainstay staple. I don't know how local authorities allow the crazy traffic around the corner to get an In-N-Out Burger, but that could be another story. The footprint's much larger than a Shake Shack or most of the concepts that I went through today at 3,500 plus square feet. You can't buy the stock. It's privately owned. You can't own an In-N-Out Burger. The closest you can get to the action is buying a plot of land, developing the land, and hopefully before that you spoke to In-N-Out's real estate team to see if you could lease that space to an In-N-Out Burger. And then number 4, Chipotle average sales, 2.6 million. They have restaurants in the US, UK, Canada, Germany, and France, specialized in bowls, tacos, mission burritos, made to order in front of the customer, always fresh. Last year, the chain's full year sales hit 3.4 billion, which is approximately 3.5 times what Chipotle reported in 2019. More important, its loyalty program members increased from 8.5 million to 26 million from 2020 to 2021. I own Chipotle stock, big fan of the company, and they've had some struggles with their unit performance in the UK and France, but if they can figure out and break out of the US market into some of these markets, I think the sky's the limit for Chipotle. And then you have White Castle, $1.8 million, regional hamburger chain, Midwest, New York area, founded 101 years ago, again in Wichita, Kansas, another brand. And it's expanded in Florida, opened its largest location in Orlando. Last year, its classic product, the original slider and cheese slider, surpassed $28 billion in sales over the lifetime of the system. So be sure to check out all the franchise brands that have opened in the United States over the past 30 years through our franchise search function. We'll include a link to that. We consulted a bunch of different sources, franchise disclosure documents, quarterly filings, QSR Magazine, Restaurant Business Online, all different types of sources that come up with this list. And I hope you found this informative as you explore franchise investments.